Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffee Chat. Today I'm doing an initial viewing or feelings of Fallout the TV series. And full disclosure, I've only seen the first 2 episodes. Now, with that in mind, I'm also not a big Fallout lore person. I know some of the basics and stuff like that, but as for deep lore, I'm not sure. I know most of the factions that have been presented in the show as it is, and yeah, it's just trying to remember what the different factions and their goals are, what they want and all that, because the one I played the most was Fallout 3, followed by New Vegas, and then 4. And obviously, if you ask any real Fallout person, Fallout 4 is not the greatest to get information from, so. But, yeah, so. I like how it started with showing the character that will eventually become the Ghoul, and what it was like right before the bombs dropped. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to play a key part in the later episodes. But for now, we see what some life was like before the world became known as the Wasteland. And you can see as soon as the bombs dropped, how people would act to that news. Some would panic and run. Well, everyone would panic and run. If you have a Fallout shelter, you probably become very defensive, not letting other people in besides your family. And with the Ghoul, pre-Ghoul, running away with his daughter. Now, we didn't know who that character. We don't know what would have become of that character until the end of the show, but it was just pretty clear. Well, I say pretty clear. I was kind of spoiled a little bit. But it was pretty clear when he reappeared at the end of the first episode who he was. So, after the nukes drop in the area, which is California in this case, we smash cut to 219 years later, I think the card said. And we are introduced to Lucy, who is a Vault-Tec vault dweller. Now, Vault-Tec is a company, well, was a company that designed and fitted out all the vaults in case of nuclear war. From my understanding, all the vaults had some sort of weird experiment going on within them, and none of the vault dwellers knew what it was, minus the Overseer. And some of the vaults I ran into in the Fallout 4 game, I think they said even the Overseer had no idea. It was run by committee, and those committees had strict guidelines to which they were to follow and stuff like that. I'm not sure, but from what I understand, every single vault had pretty much an experiment going on of some sort. I guess in this vault's case, it was having 3 different vaults connected via tunnels, but I will get to that later. But yeah, Vault-Tec has generational people within the vaults, meaning so probably a lot of incest and inbreeding and all that, but the overall goal for Vault-Tec was to build a better person to eventually, when the radiation levels dropped enough for the vaults to open and the Vault-Tec people, the Vault Dwellers, to repopulate and save America. So in the show, we are introduced to Lucy, like I said, and she says she can't find a suitable partner her age within the vault that isn't one of her cousins, which obviously is kind of weird for our perspective, but when you're in a vault like that, it's kind of like, well, you may not have a choice, but there is some sort of trade program within this vault, which makes me think of the experiment running within vaults 31, 32, and 33. So she gets approved to transfer to another vault to meet a potential partner, which is Vault 32. And her father is the Overseer. So when the two groups meet, the Overseer says, "Hey, it's good to see you guys. We're sorry to hear about what happened to your wheat and what happened to your previous Overseer." So my first thought was, oh, maybe Vault 32 there was another phase of an experiment where one side has like a major downfall and the other side doesn't. How would these two groups react to each other? There's a short marriage ceremony, and then Lucy and her new husband named Monty go and have a completely unnecessary in my opinion sex scene. It's just like, okay, we can just cut. We know how this all works. I believe is at this point we cut to another new character. I could be getting my timing wrong. You know what? Screw it. I'm just going to finish Lucy's storyline first. So, when we get back to Lucy, we see her brother, Norm, investigating Vault 32, and he sees that a Vault 32 person has died and has like basically decayed, and 32 is in shambles. So he goes and warns Vault 33 vault dwellers, and Lucy realizes who Monty is because she puts on her Pep Boy and his radiation levels is skyrocketed, and she says "Raider," and Monty proceeds to try to kill her. Now for me, this definitely does break a little bit of lore or my understanding of it, because vault doors are not meant to be open. I know for Fallout 3 it was, Fallout 4 it was, but that was after the vault experiment failed and it was forced open the first time. So what you need to do to open a vault door though is a Pep Boy, or like a wrist-mounted computer that does radiation levels, tasks, and stuff. It's like a huge PDA, old school PDA. And none of the raiders that we see has a Pep Boy unless they ditched it out. They ditched it as soon as they opened the door, or Vault 32's outer door was already open, which again presents a whole slew of lore issues and stuff like that. So Monty tries to kill Lucy. Lucy defends herself and is able to fight him off. And before anyone goes, well, she's like a 90-pound woman fighting off a 100-pound, 250-pound man who is like jacked and shit. They did say she has training and she's the best in the vault, which, I mean, let's be honest, isn't that impressive, but at least she's not like someone who never fought before. So then we get a slow montage of the raiders basically murdering everyone in the vault. There are some survivors, including Norm, her father, and some other vault dwellers, including her best friend, who I actually thought they were going to marry each other just the way they were acting. But her friend's husband gets killed and she goes in a rage and she actually loses her right eye, which I thought was interesting. But then the leader of the raiders, Medover, presents the Overseer, Lucy's father, with a choice of either sacrificing Lucy or sacrificing the survivors that were rounded up. And Lucy's father pushes Lucy in a vault. He gets tranked and dragged away. The vault dwellers are told to run and hide, which they do best. And then a bomb goes off, and the vault dwellers survive. Yeah, so at this point that it was the cut to Maximus. Anyway, So later on, after everyone's recovering and done cleaning up the vault, which I think is a funny montage because the way they're acting just makes it seem like it's an everyday thing. There's a small meeting going on for about the 15 or so survivors of the vault. And Lucy says, why don't we just go, let's go find my father since he is the overseer and we need him to oversee our vault. The 3-member council that approved her transfer to Vault 32 said no, we need to focus on rebuilding ourselves and you can't leave. Well, surprise, Lucy doesn't listen and she goes with her brother and her cousin that's in love with her take her to the vault door and they open it and she leaves. So now we're going to cut to, and that's where the episode actually ends, but we're going to cut to a new character named Maximus. He is a Brotherhood of Steel initiate, or aspirant, or something like that. I don't remember the whole ranking system for the Brotherhood of Steel, to be honest, but he is a the Brotherhood of Steel is pretty much a semi or quasi-religious type of military organization. Their goal is, from what I understand, to collect and preserve relics of pre-war relics, which is just basically technology. And they use a lot of technology. They show the Perdwin, which is a hyper-advanced blimp with propellers that is capable of traveling the country, carrying a bunch of vertibirds or vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. And they have power suits called power armor, which only knights are allowed to wear within their organization. But they are a very brutal and strict organization. You don't want to be in their way, essentially. And Maximus is trying to become a knight, but he's not doing so well. His one friend, Dane, does become a squire before him. However, the day before Dane is able to leave, someone places a razor blade in their boot. And honestly, it's one of those things like the blade was sticking out so far. How does someone not notice it? Like, the first thing I'm looking for and when I put my shoes on is there anything in the way? Are there bugs? Is there anything in the shoes? But the way they show this razor blade is like it's sticking straight out that if you don't see it, you're completely blind. So Maximus is accused of putting the blade in the boot because he was very upset when Dane got the promotion and he didn't, despite the fact that he was working as hard as Dane. And there's just there was speculation about who did it. Did Maximus really do it, despite the fact he doesn't seem like the type he would to do that? Was it the other aspirants who were jealous of Dane, or did Dane do it to themselves so that Maximus would be promoted because Dane and Maximus are friends, and Dane seemed very protective of Maximus. So, hopefully we'll find out later, but it's not a major plot point that needs to be filled in my opinion. So now he's on the hunt with his knight lord, Titus, the correct pronunciation of it at least. And they are looking for a guy with glasses and a dog. And the show wraps up, or at least we're introduced to a third character named simply the Ghoul, who is the gentleman, the cowboy from the very beginning. And we see his skills a little bit more at the end with how quick he is by when he takes out 3 bounty hunters who want to quote-unquote employ him, where he was buried underground having, I guess, radioactive liquid put into him. So this was either to make sure that he didn't go feral, which ghouls will end up doing over a certain period of time anyway, because their brains are being decayed, or he was trying to protect the world from him, or vice versa. But I thought it was really cool that the character that brought him up and was trying to quote-unquote bribe him to join was a character from Justified. And it took me a minute to remember who he was. I was like, oh yes, I remember him. It was great. He's such a good actor. And I kind of wish that they didn't kill him off as quickly as they did. I think it would have been cool to have him around a little bit longer. So yeah, for the introduction to the series, I don't think it was terrible. I think if you're not a fan or you don't understand the lore that happens to go with Fallout, the show is better for you. But I can see those who understand and know the lore of Fallout, how this show will really bug them. And yeah, it's kind of like, for me, I have to separate what I know from the games, from the show, which is kind of hard because it's like, okay, you got to recall this Easter egg, that callback, this callback. I don't know as much as a lot of other people I'm reading online do, but it is like, oh, that's wrong. Wait, how does this work? Why are the vaults like this? I don't understand. So, the second episode shows Lucy, and the vault is actually right next to, well, no, that's how the episode ended. The vault is right next to the Pacific Ocean and that really famous pier. I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, so basically the whole show supposedly takes place in California, I think. Or the New California Republic. NCR, yeah, New Republic of California. So I don't know if the NCR faction is going to show up in this. They did have the Enclave mentioned in this episode as well. And the Enclave, if I remember correctly, is like a super hyper, basically a big pro-government semi-dictatorship. I'm not 100% sure on this. I have to go back and play Fallout 3 to remember, or I could just look up the wiki, which I'm going to be too lazy to do today. But yeah, we start with being introduced to the person that is being hunted, who is a scientist from the Enclave, and he raised a dog named CX404. And these dogs, I guess, are meant to be controlled via a radio chip in their brain, but the scientist, I forget his name. He stole 404 that he named 4 to raise independently or naturally. He later is shown to be injecting some sort of chip within his skull, which is a big no-no, as he is then also shown to, the dog is seen by another scientist, and the scientist triggers the alarm, and the good scientist leaves with 4, and now is wanted by the Enclave, who has put out bounties basically to every known faction. So the Brotherhood of Steel's looking for them, the Enclave is looking for them, and we later see that the Ghoul himself is looking for the scientist as well. So throughout this episode, Lucy is wandering around, I should say, being like bright-eyed and unknowing of the wasteland, and people are telling her to go back to the vault, you don't belong here, you just don't understand, which is nothing new from the games, that you're basically looked at and shunned upon because vault dwellers are not very well received on the surface for their naivety, their arrogance, and just general not knowing what the world is really like. and Lucy is no exception. So she ends up getting directions to a place called Philly, spelled Filly, not like Philadelphia, Philly, which is a reminiscence of Fallout 3's Megaton, which is a town surrounded in a nuclear bomb. This one does not have a nuclear bomb, though. Philly is bomb-free. And we're going to step back to Maximus' story, where he's trying to not necessarily kiss up to Titus, but impress Titus. And Titus is just an arrogant prick of a person. You kind of don't like him at all, the way he acts, but it is the way that the Brotherhood, quote-unquote, raised him, and how knights are revered, and they are the best of the best of the best of the best, sir, with honors. But they find the scientist, and four had been in a location where they happened to be passing by, and Titus kind of treats Maximus like a piece of shit. And when I forget what the species is called, but a giant mutated bear attacks Titus, Maximus does end up saving him, but Titus does die while constantly insulting Maximus. And Maximus pretty much steals his parachute armor. And he gets a little cocky with it and thinks he's able to solve a few people's problems. And he also ends up in Philly. Now, going back to the radioactive bear, Lucy does meet the scientist and four pretty early on in the episode, where she's trying to sleep with a fire, and there's a creature noise that stirs her from a sleep, and four ends up attacking the creature. I recognize the sound as a rad roach, and the scientist, who admittedly is very creepy, just staring at her, watching her. It's like they mutated for the worse. It's like, oh yeah. And the scientist is trying to help her, telling her to go back. She just doesn't understand. And when the scientist and Lucy meet up again in Philly, he reveals that he knows a lot about her and the vault she's in, which I think the Enclave does do that. Or maybe this was a very specific situation where Vault 33 was under his observation or something. Again, I'm not sure. I hope it gets explained later. But anyway, so right before the scientist is able to make his escape in Philly with a shopkeeper that told Lucy to pretty much fuck off, the ghoul shoots his leg off, and a shootout endures. Now the ghoul gets shot a couple of times, and he's not really affected by it, which I can see that happening. But he ends up killing all the people that were shooting at him, injures the shopkeeper, because she's got another role to play in a few minutes, and was about to kill Lucy, because Lucy shot him with a dart, like a tranquilizer dart, and he chuckled and said, that's a small drop of drugs in an ocean full of them, which means his ghouls can't be put to sleep with tranquilizer drugs, which kind of funny, will admit, especially the way Walton Goggins acts and betrays every character he's in. It's really cool. He's a great actor in my opinion, especially for Western style characters. So right before the ghoul attempts to kill Lucy, Maximus shows up and tries to deflect attention from her to him. Doesn't work, but he ends up saving Lucy by jumping in front of her and saying, hey, I'm here for the scientist, can you get him out of here while I'll distract the ghoul? And pretty much does. So As the scientist is getting a new foot, very, very painfully, I might add, the shopkeeper says that she didn't know where her father was until Lucy said he got kidnapped by Medover, and that's when the shopkeeper told her to fuck off. So now she's saying, I know where Medover is, but you're not going to reach her without a bargaining chip. Medover is looking for this scientist here. Here's your bargaining chip. You got to go to the shit town. So the scientist escapes with Lucy. Four is unfortunately incapacitated by the ghoul as Four attacked him. And Maximus and the ghoul are fighting. Now Lucy and the scientist makes their escape. The ghoul disables the armor, and Maximus is sent flying. It lands right next to a little shitter. Shit face first into the shit. And the ghoul, seeing that Four is still alive, stim packs her. I'm assuming it's a her. And the dog is now fine and mobile. So the ghoul is going to use Four to find the scientist. However, the episode ends with the scientist not doing so well. He took a cyanide pill earlier and tells Lucy to cut his head off, and that only his head really matters because of what's in it. So now Lucy is going to be carrying around a head for the rest, or at least until she finds Medover. And then we hopefully get answers of who the hell Medover is that she's so feared, and what she took Lucy's father's for. So right now my theory is, although Lucy's father said that he was from Vault 31, I think he was from the outside. But yeah. It's a definitely interesting start to the shows. Like I said earlier, if you're able to take yourself out of the lore, if you know it, it's a little more enjoyable. Still some modern day things in there that's just like that wouldn't be in a post-apocalyptic world, but other things it's just like, yeah, that works. But I am looking forward to seeing the conclusion of this series in the next couple of days, hopefully. So until then, I do suggest watching this show. If you're looking for something casual, this might not be it. The first episode is basically the length of a movie, and I would say it's a little more mature than some of this stuff, but it is Amazon Prime. They're able to do pretty much whatever they want, so just be wary of that. There's no full-on nudity, but there's a lot of blood, guts, and gore. So with that, before I start repeating myself, thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.